What's up? Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? All right. Hopefully, you guys were able to review my game plan. I'll briefly run through it here. Um, you snip my charts, and I'll talk about that. Actually, let me just go over to the 4 hour because I feel like it's just a clearer picture of what's going on here on the 4 hour. Whenever it's just kind of choppy and slow, I like to kind of go up to higher time frames and just have a clean view of what's going on here. So I marked these two levels of the consolidation. I'll talk about swing setup slash. Honestly, I haven't taken any in quite a while, so I've had not really much reason to take it. Jorge, good morning. If I say anybody's name's wrong, just correct me, fix it. All right, so this is what I'm looking at. We had this area up here where we had this, call it a supply area that formed at all-time highs. We panic sold off that tariff news. And as always, like we've seen a million times, the brakes got put on it and we're just grinding back higher. So since then, we kind of faked out here because we were kind of making higher lows, uptrending, and then whoop, fake out and back up again, which that is kind of my swing trade setup, by the way. That's what I look for there, Laksh. So we've been on this uptrend recently. You see all the momentum we've had, right, over the last week, and continued this week, and we're kind of consolidating here now. Now, I marked this range on the 4-hour chart because you can see I marked the high and low of this candle body here, which align with this one. It also really aligned well with the high volume consolidation on a volume profile on my 30-minute chart with the volume profile that you guys know I always look at every morning. So we kind of have one of these W's going on. W and M patterns are something I watch for all the time, just from a purely just technical analysis structure. So we've got this going on here, this high volume consolidation. Generally, my see this around 75s is kind of the middle of this area. And we've seen a lot of interesting order flow reaction around the 75s. So generally, the first thing that I look for once I identify the market going into a balance range is mean reversions. So I look for fake out dips and pops to fade and mean revert. Now, once we start spending too much time in here, I start to get more and more hands off. So we already had Monday afternoon in here. Like we said, remember yesterday I said pretty much that whole move happened in like the first hour Monday morning, and then all afternoon we consolidated in this range. Then we consolidated in that range all day, all night, all day yesterday, all night last night, and going into this morning, we're right in the middle. So once we start to spend too much time in there, like 2-3 days, then I start to get more and more hands off for the mean reversion scalps, and I just start to kind of sit back and wait for kind of a larger breakout. But I do continue to look for that until a true breakout comes. So that's what I'm generally looking for. Now, I will say I'm leaning a lot more towards buying dips and looking for it to possibly break out. And the reason for that is just that VX is very weak. Bulls have been in control. We've got a lot of upward momentum. Sellers have had the chance to reject, once, made a higher low, twice, didn't go anywhere, 3, 4, 5. Wow, that was loud. Sorry, guys. So we've had multiple chances. I'm not even really going to watch things right in the middle here. So sellers have had a lot of chances to reject strongly off this supply. And remember that this supply formed because of that tariff news that we impulsively sold off from. So given that it was like a news overreaction panic, I'm a little hesitant to give that too much weighting as far as a very key supply zone, because it was just like a panic sell-off from the news, and then we came straight back. And how many times have we seen that, right? How many times have we seen that, right? It's been just a buy the dip every opportunity for the last year or two. So why is this one any different until proven otherwise? Right. So I am watching for dips, even this area from Monday morning where you have this little low volume node zone arc. I'm watching for dips in there if it holds. I'm watching for the fake out mean reversion dip if it holds. And I'm watching for the breakout if it holds back above the 80s to target kind of these 6800s. And if we get really strong, we could even break out all-time highs. If we don't, then I'm looking for, if we pop and fail, I'm watching that mean reversion back towards the middle. And if we break down really strong, then I'm watching for that break and retest under this high volume consolidation. Just targeting that quick scalp back to the 6740 to 30 zone here. Right. Drop that there for your, it's kind of a messy little drawing there now. So a lot of selling right off the opening bell here, coming back towards the bottom of that range. Like a 80, wow. Actually, that's a pretty good drop. Almost basically from 80 down to under 70, like 10, 12 point drop here right off the rip. So that's pretty stout. We do need to watch VX if this is another thing I didn't put in there, but if VX stays very muted, especially below like prior day lows, then it's going to be really hard to see much downside come, right? So if we continue to see this downtrend on VX and we, fail to break out the highs, now I'll be a lot more interested in downside on ES if VX really wakes up and holds above the 20s. But as long as we hold really under the 20s and we stay kind of dead, it seems like any quick sell-offs are just going to continue to lack continuation as we stay kind of muted down here on VX. See how long we did this? Like if we just go into that again here, now if we do this again, right, then I'll be like here. If we do that again, then I'll be a lot more interested on downside on ES and NQ. Does that make sense? But VX is popping a little bit here off the open, and a pretty healthy, quick little drop here on ES. NQ looks relatively weaker, back kind of well under prior day lows. This is a day where I'm gonna have kind of quad charts open here and looking at the 15-minute on VX gapped up a little bit too. Oh wait, you know what? It's a new contract on VX today. Think contract rollover was on VX today. But yeah, I've got NQ. Normally I have just a 2-minute and a 15-minute chart open, but today I'm going to keep an eye on NQ, ES, VX, and SOX. SOX is kind of weaker now, gapping down a bit, which is the semiconductor. Yeah, for me, SOX is the best reference for semis. The best. All right, so we're down to that 66s. Bottom of that balance range, some nice aggressive buying coming in here. I'm going to watch this area. See this bid that just filled? If we just smoke through this here, then forget it. But I'm going to watch what happens here. That was some large buying. And actually, if we see that large buying stepped in here at those lows, and this does get smoked through, then that'll be telling either way. I liked this large aggressive buying here, but I don't like how it kind of popped with that weaker selling and then smoked all the way back through the low there. I'm just going to continue to watch this here. I'm not ready to be a first buyer just because of how heavy that selling was off the open there. If we break back over these 68s and then pull back and hold above this box, I'll be more interested. And it would just be a quick scalp back into like the 75s. NQ really took out prior day lows though, and ES has not. So that's an interesting piece of information. I do like how this buying is now larger and kind of above this 68, but we'll see. Looks like VX kind of swept over the overnight highs and is pulling back a bit. Yeah, I like just zooming out here. That buying looks pretty large, pretty nice. Let's see if we get a little pullback now. If we can get a pullback back towards these 68, 66s, I'd be interested. I'd want to see bids kind of appear and hold it. I'm not going to chase it though. If we get a little rejection off VWAP here, quick little pullback that holds, I'll be interested. If it just shoots straight up, then, it is what it is. I don't have a setup. Oh, wow. Johnny, you caught that? You got stopped by a tick, Joe? Where'd you get in? To me, the selling was just too heavy here, even though I saw this bid. I wasn't comfortable quite just jumping in front of that in the first couple minutes, even though we were coming to that 66 level at the bottom of this. I wanted to see some really strong aggressive buying and then long a pullback, but that's just me. But that might come at the cost of me missing the setup. Actually, I could have maybe just got in instead of like waiting for a retest, seeing this larger buying here at these prior highs. I could have possibly just got in with that here in hindsight, just got in with it instead of waiting for a retest of it and then just put my stop here under 64. In hindsight, that may have been a good idea. Man, David, that's hated, man. I hate that. That's what I'm trying to avoid, and I'm not in any trade now because it's kind of squeezing right up without a pullback. So here's a bit more pullback. Still didn't quite hit the 75s, but I don't love that we got so close to the 75s because that was kind of my target. And these offers appeared up here. So I don't totally love that we already popped pretty much to 74.50, just 2 ticks away from the 75s, which is kind of my target, was kind of my target for the scalp. NQ is having a nice bounce too. So NQ took out the prior day lows and is making a wicked bounce. ES did not take out the prior lows, and it's looking like it's not making quite as much of a bounce so yet as NQ. Yeah, that stinks, man. This was 69s. I just was looking for 68s or 60, 68 to 66. Based on where I was going to put my stop loss, I was looking for 68 to 66, and we came not quite a deep enough pullback for me to get in that, to be honest. We came to 70 right here, basically. 70.5. So for me, when I'm targeting a mean reversion, we may go break out the highs. I don't know, but that's just not my best probability target. My best probability target was just 75s, the middle of this range. So, getting in at 70 here, having like at least a like 4 or 5 point stop loss under 66, 65, where this buying started. Otherwise, I just have a kind of random arbitrary stop loss. It's kind of just a 1-to-1. So even though I still liked it, it just wasn't. I don't trade 1-to-1s. 2-to-1 is like the minimum I look for to enter a trade. So we're over these 75s now. So just a nasty fake out dip off the open into the low of that balance range. If you guys remember, I talked about I'm more likely to buy that first dip on a fake out setup. If you are new here and you don't know what I'm talking about, I recommend the trading resources tab, going to the playbook setups. And I did some pretty in-depth webinars on top and bottom reversals that I like to trade. And on the fake out bottom reversal setup, I will look for like kind of this large sweep, and I'll get in a little bit quicker on the fake out and not necessarily wait for a retest. In this situation, that probably would have worked here if I saw this get filled. I think what kept me out of it was just how large and heavy the selling was in the first like 5 minutes here. And I wasn't just the way it occurred, I wasn't quite so comfortable with it in the first 5 minutes on that heavy selling. So it worked. The setup worked exactly how I have it described in my playbook. I just the context of how it happened, like in the first couple minutes after 9:30, just made me uncomfortable with it. I wanted to wait and see the aggressive buying come in this instance, and then long a pullback, and we just never got the pullback. So the setup idea worked exactly like I just talked about with you guys from the pre-market game plan, but just the way it happened just kind of made me not take it. Or I decided just to kind of not take it just because of how it happened. And by the time it was really obvious and good, it was like kind of like just a one-to-one setup for where I was looking to target. Nice, Johnny. So that webinar, you watched that webinar that helped you? Hell yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't if I got in at the 68s, I'd probably not be holding this into the red because really I was just targeting a mean reversion to the 75s. The reality is, guys, we're still in the middle of a high volume consolidation balance range. And so it gets very tempting when you see it move quickly in your favor to like want to hold the whole thing to go break out the other side of the balance range. But from my experience, like more often than not, it's best to just kind of take the scalp, target the middle of the range, then get the heck out of it. That's unfortunate, man. One tick away from take profit. Yeah, that happened to me yesterday. I was up like 12 points yesterday and came all the way back on me break even. Very frustrating. Actually, the whole week is kind of frustrating on my end. I lost a couple $100 Monday, made a couple $100 Tuesday, but I was up like $1,400 and came back on me break even yesterday when Trump started tweeting or whatever he was talking about tariffs. So just one of those weeks right now. It's all good. Yeah, it's a good to identify that, David. If you got to know yourself and know things that trigger you, and it's not worth the risk. It's better to just step away. Trade when you're ready to perform without any emotion at all. It's always better to come back another day when you're ready to go. Every day, just got to kind of start fresh, have you know, it's 0-0. Don't let the past affect your present decision making. The fact that we're going to talk about this a lot Friday in our coaching webinar, but the faster you can return to your kind of baseline good performance behavior after making a mistake, the better you're going to be at trading. That's kind of the definition of resilience, is how quickly you can get back to performing unaffected after something derails you. but that's a skill that's built over time. And earlier on, it's more better to lengthen the time between your decision making when something happens that kind of derails your emotions, derails your good trading thinking and decision making. Lengthen the time before you make another decision to return back to kind of baseline, good trading behavior, so you don't kind of capitulate and make, compounded errors. And over time, you become like more and more skilled at, making a mistake or something negative happening and then quickly getting back on track to not allowing it to affect you and just continue to make good decisions. But you have to be very honest with yourself when you're not there, and because we all want to be there, but you have to be very honest with yourself. If you're not there and you feel your decision making is compromised by emotions and whatever, if you feel yourself there, step away. When in doubt, zoom out. So let's take a look at this, guys. Just take a look at this. This is that high volume range. There's not much edge in the middle of this, guys. Just by anyone's metrics, there is not much edge in the middle of this, unless you're a high frequency trading algorithm and you're just absolutely hunting stop losses brutally. There's not much edge there. The edge in trading this kind of range is at the edges. That the edge is at the edge, right? In a balanced range. And right now, we had a nice fake out. I did not catch it, but it's there, just like we planned. Just for me, didn't get like an entry that I was comfortable with pulling the trigger on, but we got it. And that's that target area that I talked about, is that middle of the range. But now we're there, in the 75 area, right? So we're in the 75 area that we were looking to target. But now that we're there, I'm not looking to touch this, right? You might see stuff on the order flow that makes you tempted to jump in a trade. Like you might see a large sweeping order, whatever, but you need to maintain that constant awareness and focus on the location of the market. That's on Sierra chart. I do have the trade of 8-1 here, and I trade that as well. Here, I'll show you trade of 8-1. I trade on both my Sierra chart and my trade of 8 accounts. So this is the trade of 8-1. You can see that high volume area. That nice fake out there. You only want to play around the edges. That's what we're watching, guys. Just staying patient for a good setup, not trying to get too psyched into putting on risk in the middle of a range, regardless of what I see on the order flow. Because it's just too easy to get chopped up doing that. And then you end up taking 2 or 3 losses, and then you miss a great setup later because you're, wrapped up in the couple annoying losses you took in the middle of a range. I do got to get prepped early today. I'm going on a kind of a bigger trading podcast later today. So it should be a good one for you guys to listen to. I don't know when it'll come out, but should be fun. You remember that, Joe? No t-shirts and ball caps, huh? That guy. Yeah, this was the only opportunity here. Like when we saw this large bid here at 65s, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far, the only opportunity was to be a buyer here between like 66 and 68. Since then, to me, I'm not comfortable chasing it up here towards the middle of the range. We're already kind of moving towards the target. So yes, we could go sweep the high of the balance range. It's just not good probability to enter on it in the middle and target. That's People get too psyched into things and they think something's going to happen, and so they start entering trades in the middle of a balance range to go target an extreme of the balance range. And that can work sometimes, but more often than not, you'll take a lot of paper cuts trying to do that. We can see this right here at these 65s, this larger, how many lots is that? So it's not that big, but it's interesting how it was here, 85 lots filled, now here, you know, 50 something lots. It's getting darker. Now it's up to 80 lots. That's interesting because it's 80 lots. It was 80 lots something over here. Now another 80 something lots here. At the exact same spot again. This is going to be interesting to me in the near term today if we break under this or if we dip down there again and either dip it and recapture it quickly, or if we hold under it, or if we just drop into it and bounce off it again. This is going to be interesting to continue to watch today. This is something I talk about all the time. I when I see this kind of setting up, I stay out of it. And we got one of these. See that? And we kind of had one yesterday too. We had that nice move in the morning, and then from there on, it just psyched everybody out all day and kind of grinded in this channel, grinding again in this channel. Yeah. Some nice aggressive buying coming in here on this recapture of VWAP again. So we're defending these 69s one, two, three times here, and kind of large buying continue. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see this keep squeezing back up into the 80s, but I'm just not really interested in getting it and putting risk on for it here. Just looking at a 2-minute chart here, you know, look at this. Tells us everything we need to know, right? I see more wicks than candle bodies, even on a 2-minute chart. Do you guys like that? If this is annoying, I won't do this, but do you guys like when I snip these things to talk through them? Do you guys like me just dropping it in the chat so you can reference it? Okay. Okay, cool. All right, then I'll keep doing it. I thought so, because just kind of instead of me just snipping it and then just closing it, I'll just drop it in the chat so you guys can reference it if you kind of miss what I'm talking about throughout the live stream. Yeah, Joe, I wouldn't even say it's about being aggressive. It's just about not having fear. Like when you see a setup, you just take it, you set your stop, set your target, and just do it. Just don't overthink it. And you should be trading with such small size that it doesn't need to be a big mental decision. You want to have your limits. Like for me, for the most part, 90% of the time, it's like 3 or 4 trades in a day max. Some days it's no trade, some days it's one trade. But you want to just get to the point where you're comfortable and you're not like, sweating bullets, hesitating, finger on the button on your mouse, and you're like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Like when you see the setup, especially like when you have a plan for it, you see it set up, you just do it. You just try to be in the moment when you see the good confirmations, because you don't want to hesitate. And this is something we're going to talk more about on Friday again. But you don't want to hesitate to the point where your risk and reward becomes skewed. It's no longer a great entry. And you don't want to be impatient and jump in before there's good confirmations. So there's that happy like middle point where you see good confirmations, you take the trade without hesitating, versus, and that's like right in between being impatient and getting in before there's good confirmations, and being too fearful and hesitating and then getting in, too late when there was good confirmations, but now it's just not very good risk versus reward or whatever. So you have to learn to just like live in that comfort zone of just being kind of mentally free and just executing in the moment when the setup is there, when the confirmation's there, when there's good risk versus reward that you plan for, all that stuff. You just try to not think about it. You just boom, go. And it's easier and easier to do when you're just trading with size that you're comfortable with. And every time I've tried to trade too big, too fast, regardless of how much money you have, like I'm still kind of trading for the most part in like 1 to 4 contract range. Occasionally there's setups that I'll size into a bit, but let's say 90% of my trades right now are like 2 to 4 ES contracts. And I'm just, I could trade bigger than that, but it's just, that's kind of like where I'm like mentally comfortable with for some reason. And anytime I try to push too fast, I end up making more mistakes than it's worth, hesitating, not wanting to accept losses with that size. So it's just don't compare yourself to anyone. Just trade with size that you're comfortable performing well with, and then just, gradually expand from there. Um, my entries, yeah, as far as analyzing the order flow, Johnny asked, Matt, with Bookmap, your entries are reliant on the size of the bubbles, with the bubbles being different depending on how far close you are scrolled at that point. Is it just feel, or do you have a visual? Like, yeah, it is kind of a feel thing, and you just got to get experience with it. I'm constantly playing with the zooming out and zooming in. But the big things that I'm looking at is like the relative size of like recent bubbles versus current bubbles of buyers and sellers, right? So like let's just go back to this fake out bottom reversal that happened. Okay, we see relatively large sell bubbles as we tried to break this low of the balance range. It failed. And then all of a sudden, this is when I marked this zone when this relatively large buying came in, right? This is when I marked this box. And then we pulled back again, and relatively compared to what was over here, this selling was smaller than this. So this made it even more interesting. And then when we broke out above this here, the selling, this buying was relatively larger than this high over here. So that made it even more interesting. So I was really interested in buying this if we pulled back. Now, in hindsight, as soon as I saw this large buying coming in, I could have just got in with it and put my stop under here. But I decided to kind of like wait for this large buying to come in and see if we got a pullback with kind of smaller, weaker selling. We just never really got any pullback, and we squeezed all the way up to the target. So I just sat out. But that's kind of how I'm like observing the bubble size and the order flow in real time, is like looking at the relative size and what's developing. And what I'm noticing here is like, look at how each time we pull back, the selling is getting smaller, and we're kind of maintaining this larger aggressive buying at the highs. So, I mean, anything could change, right? But if I had to pick a side right now, it seems like buyers are showing more energy than sellers. But that could change, in a second's notice if, some new information comes out and some new orders come out. But just what I'm seeing right now, we see one pullback, two pullback, three pullback, four pullback. And each time the selling is kind of looking smaller, and we're continuing to see the aggressive buying coming in. Now, if we continue to see this aggressive buying and it's just unable to get above these 75s, which is kind of the middle of that range, then we have to flip it a little bit and be like, okay, yeah, we are seeing all this aggressive buying, but who's on the other side of that? If we're just still again and again unable to get over these 75s, then obviously there's a passive seller sitting here. And if this buying dries up, then we could sweep quickly back to the lows once selling starts to step in. Because what's happening here is like more and more people start to see, oh, there's a passive seller here rejecting this. And then more and more people are like, oh, let me sell aggressively, right? And then it tanks. So, but it's very much a coin flip right here in the middle of this range. So I'm just observing what's developing, and I'm not putting on risk here. Does that help you guys with specifically you, Johnny, with what how I'm kind of watching this? Now, if we dip down here quickly again and kind of sweep out these lows where all these stop losses are now under these lows, and look at all these bids appearing down here, if we bounce again off the bottom of this consolidation range, that might be interesting too. But I don't love it so much just because of the context. Like, we already hit the low of the balance range, we already hit my target, which was the 75s, the middle of the range, and all this buying came in the middle of the range at the 75s and failed. So it's not, this was more A plus if we got it here before going and hitting the 75s. But now that we've already bounced and hit the 75s, it could still work again. It just doesn't look as good anymore. Yeah, that's a good observation, Andrew. Put a chart in the chat showing all the aggressive buying there at the highs and kind of not going anywhere. That's a good visual. At VWAP too. So many times when you see, kind of a significant sell program going on, they will try to defend with limit orders around VWAP. Not every day, but like when there's a sell program going on, um, they will many times sell VWAP. Yeah, algos are absolutely tearing it up in this up and down chop. I used to be a lot more into taking a lot of little scalps, and I would scalp little ranges like this a lot. But as the years have gone on, I've just kind of felt like worth less and less of my mental energy, and I'd rather just kind of sit back and wait for bigger, better plays. Pretty decently large order hit there at 67.67, 724 lot negative delta there. See it here on the DOM, 693 lot, but I'm looking at my footprint chart. I can see specifically there at 67.67, there's a 724 lot. And you can see it here on the cumulative DOM, 693, 702, 815. See how that all that negative is building up right here on this DOM? And you can see it right here on this bubble. It's right at the top of this box too. Let's watch what happens here. It's kind of skewing the view of all the other bubbles because this was so big. Yeah, exactly. Cufano is that 67.67. I'm not looking to jump in front of this just yet. There's some heavy selling coming in. Now a 1200 lot hit at 67.65. So we got to watch out for this right here. Look at zooming out on the day. Look how large that is here. So let's watch out for this. Can't even get a good view of what's going on here because we're so large right there. That's interesting though. Remember how I talked about that 60, 65, 65 or 67, 65? That was the same spot as over here. Look at that. And it rebid again here and filled with all this really large selling into it here. And now it's up here too, 67 and 65. It's very interesting, huh? At that same spot where it filled there this morning, came back. Remember what I talked about? Like if we sweep under it and quickly recapture. So I'm still watching this now. If we get a pullback here that holds above this now, I still didn't want to be like a first one to jump in front of it, but it's just looking kind of tricky, to be honest with you guys. It's kind of thin. Yeah, it's kind of just thin. We have those like really large orders, and then everything else is just kind of thin. I'm looking at kind of the footprint chart more, just seeing it just kind of looks kind of thin here. Yeah, almost the first hour in here, and not much significant volume or anything. This is you go to yeah, for sure, Jasmine. Hard to catch anything without much good momentum. Like to get any kind of juice out of the squeeze here, you got to be like in right at the lows and then just kind of hold through a grind, which is like see that double bottom formed here in this zone. But it's interesting to watch this stuff, like see how this interesting activity on this box occurred. I mean, we marked this all the way back here when this happened. Like so like here, I think at like 9:35 I marked this, and then look how it's reacted since then, just based on spotting this. Now I didn't personally take a trade off of it, but it's still, you can see how it reacted, how you can use that order flow information. If nothing else, hopefully you guys see like how to spot interesting activity on the order flow here, like how this bid appeared and then reappeared and large orders occurred at it multiple times. Like this is the kind of stuff people ask, like how I look at interesting order flow levels and see things like this. Here's a live class on it right now. This is how you identify things in real time. So since 9:30, my DOM over here clears at 9:30. Let me show you something. So since 9:30, see how the volume here is just kind of forming a middle bulge with a tail on both ends. It's kind of like, I don't know, like a torpedo shape. There's not much, and there's the 75. There's not much edge in there, right? So in addition to like the stuff that I show you guys as far as how I, use the volume profiles on the 30-minute charts, um, for multi-day analysis, like, confirming and looking at my levels and stuff. I'm also looking at this volume profile that forms intraday, but I'm looking at it on my DOM here, right? And that just shows, so what that shows is just kind of like a lack of interest at both the highs and the lows, and a lot of volume being transacted in the middle, which is just, further showing us visually like It's a very balanced market. Buyers and sellers are kind of agreeing on price in the middle of the range, and few people are interested in participating at the highs or the lows right now. So kind of just waiting for that to change. But I think it's helpful to, have real tangible visuals of like what we're talking about and knowing when and why we are looking to take a trade and when and why we're looking to avoid a trade and where and what, you know what I mean? One thing I am observing here is how we're making multiple lower highs now. So it seems like, buyers are getting weaker and weaker. We're seeing that absorption, right? For sure at the lows and around the 75s. But we had this like aggressive sell off here and then kind of doing one of those H things that all your gurus online talk about, that trade price action or claim to trade price action. A lot of people talk about the H. Well, we're kind of seeing things on the volume profile, but we're kind of seeing how buyers are kind of having less and less strength and forming higher lows. So it would be interesting now if we really break under this for kind of that break and retest downside here. So if we break under this now, like with all that context, I may be interested in actually going short under these 65, 66s now. In the same box, if we, get some aggressive selling under here and pop and fail under it, I may be interested going short, just targeting a break down towards, 67.50s, 67.45s. You got to be careful though, like shorting right at a balance range low. You want to make sure you really see good confirmations of a breakdown and short a pop on a retest. It's a kind of a discretionary fine line, learning to read what's happening to kind of gauge whether if you're looking at a fake out or if you're looking at a possible break and retest. But given the context of what I just showed you guys here is what I'm observing, how we're kind of making higher lows, higher lows. We saw all that absorption around the 75s in the middle of that range and continue to kind of break these lows. I want to see some really strong selling though, like under 66 and pops fail under 66. Where these large orders were right here. Yeah, some larger selling coming in here. I'm gonna possibly take a stab short here am short here and just have a stop over like 66, 67-ish area. Look at that. Yeah, I'm going to probably go break even pretty fast here. I want to see the selling really drop this thing. Mint 63.50s. No reason we should come back up above 65, 66 now with this heavy selling. Kind of a balance range low break. And I'm going to take half off pretty quick here if I see something. Actually, yeah, I'm just going to go half off right here, right now. 57s for, 6 points. And then I'm just going to hold this for this breakdown. Just to pad some profit since I'm having a tough week locking in wins. I've had a lot of comebackers this week. So let me just lock it in, lock in 6 points there, and then see if we want to get a nice big breakdown. Lock in half there for 6 points. I was only risking about 2.5 points. Nothing crazy yet, nothing crazy. But if this is actually a real big balance range low breakout, this could go for, down into the 40s. This could go for 20 points on the second half. Yeah, I was looking at, as we popped back into this box here, I was looking at how weak this buying was, and I just took it short as soon as the selling started coming in. Because I was like, wow, that is some weak buying here after this heavy selling came in. Look at this buying after we hit that box, and then we broke back under it, and then we popped here with this really pretty weak buying. And as soon as that selling started to come back in, I just went with it. And my stop was initially just over 66. So like 2.5 points. So if we can drop down to like the 45s, that'd be nice for about 20 points on this. Balance range low break. I just don't, we could sweep out these prior day lows and maybe we could recapture, but I just don't see a whole lot until we get down to those 45s to 30s. I don't see much to indicate we couldn't drop another 10 points to those 45s to 30s. So I'm sitting in this. Yeah, I mean, that's just a lot of selling. But I've been fooled before, you guys. Was up like 10, 12 points yesterday on that large selling. But this is different. We broke that balance range that we were in for 3 days. And there's a lot of heavy selling coming in on the break of that balance range. So, yeah, just see if we can just get a few more points here, 45s. Like, would you go long here? I don't know. Probably not. I don't think I'd go long here. So if there's like 0% chance that I would take this long against this breakdown of the balance range, then I'm going to sit in my short. Right. There's until we get to like Monday's opening range, which is that 45 to 30 area I'm looking at, I don't see much to tell me that buyers would step in. I could be wrong, and this could be another comebacker, but I don't see much. So I'm going to kind of sit in this. Like it seems kind of far fetched that we'd come back to my entry at the 63s now with against this much selling, right? It could happen and I could totally get wiped out and that would be something. But I don't know. Tell you what though, if we hold a higher low above these 50s now, then I may close this. I would like to see these 50s break where this large bid was. If we hold a higher low from that, I may close. Nice, Pat. This buying just doesn't look very large. Like, yeah, we had that big bid hit here, but I'm not seeing large aggressive buying by any means. I could totally be wrong and this could shoot back up randomly, which would be annoying. Totally possible though. All right, let's get one more break of the low into those 45s. Just a couple points away. See where these bids are sitting right here? These 44s, 45s. See if we can get a nice sweep down into there. Man, Now I still have my stop just at break even, but I'm kind of manually watching this. I'm manually watching this. I'm up like 11 points. I was up like 14 or 15 points, so. But I'm just seeing how, yeah, we're having these quick little pops, which is typical to see on a sell off. But I'm just not seeing really large aggressive buying that would tell me like this is the bottom. You know what I mean? But I don't like how this bid keeps coming up here around these 50s. If we don't break through that here quickly, like I'm kind of maybe done with this trade. See that bid popping up there again? I want to see that get smoked and break through these 50s. Kind of gritting my teeth right here, guys. I'd be lying if I was telling you I was sitting here comfortable because I just don't like how these 50s are holding, but I'm trying to be patient for my target. There's some more large selling. I really want to see this really break these 50s now and go for a new low, another leg lower here. I don't really want to see a fake out of the lows and large buying come in. Kind of we dropped, we're basing. I want to see a drop base drop here. One more kind of heavy drop here. These bids are really wanting this 50s, man. Son of a gun. See these bids really like coming in here? There's a lot of aggressive selling coming in, but it's just like right sitting here at these bids. Let's see if they hold it or not, or if we keep smoking through it. I would just be surprised. That would be deep pockets to hold here with this downside coming in. It's possible though. Look at this 1,000 lots negative delta here, then 500 lots, 500 lots. There's just so much negative delta built at the lows. I would be really surprised if we don't, break at least down one more time to the 40s, 45s, 45, 40s. It's just it's very heavy. There we go. This thing is like just dangling a carrot in front of me, isn't it? Come on. There we go. There's 45s. I'm not waiting. I'm all out, guys. I'm out right there. At that large hit there, 45s. That's what I said I was going for. That's about 19 points. Joe, waiting. Oh, man. It still could come. Yeah, I saw that one more dip here. We had this another large bid coming in here. You see that 950 lots. This thing might keep dropping, and it probably will, guys. But I just sat in it, got my 19 points. I'm cool. That was my target. I was trying to hit those 45s. We hit it. So it may drop another 20 points from here, and I'll be like, damn it, why did I sell? But be in the habit of just entering at your entries, exiting at your exits, and just letting everything else go. So here you go, guys. Let's see here. Let's recap this really quick. See, net, I made 24 points. We saw this heavy selling here at the lows, then we popped, and that's when I said that selling was really kind of low. We were making that H pattern. This heavy selling came in here, and we got a little pop, and this is where I went short at 63.50s. And I just kind of put my stop like right at the top of where this buying was here, around 66. So it was like 2.5 points of risk. And then we had this large 400 lot buying come in here. And I said, just in case this is a fake out, let me take half off 6 points here and just move my risk to break even. I've had a lot of freaking annoying zero trades come back this week. So I was like, let me just get, when I've talked about, just get the ball rolling in your direction again. I've had a lot of these break evens this week. So I locked in because I was risking 2.5 points. So 6 points is like 2.5 R, right? It's like 2.5 R. And then I just held for that target down in the 45s. That made me more comfortable to just hold for that target in the 45s. So that's where I got out 57s. And then, we just kept, even though we were seeing these pops, I just didn't see any significant buying. And look at all this heavy selling that kept coming in the lows, kept coming in the lows, kept coming in the lows. And then we dropped one more time. That was that 45s target right here. And I saw this 943 lot delta. And I was like, how annoying would that be if we dip one more time, hit my target, and then zip back up here to the 55s and I stop out for, give back 10 points. So I said, this is my target, 45s. I market exited here. So I got filled at 45.75-ish. We're still breaking down though. So if I was in more than 2 contracts, I would have just scaled out another contract there and kept holding. Make sense to everybody on the trade setup? And so this is what I was watching, guys. Let me pull my chart over here. So we all know about the high balance range that we've been watching. And what I saw was, this is my target area, by the way, marked on the chart, right? The top of that was like 45s down to like those 30s. So that was that target area I was watching. because this is an area I would possibly watch to get long. So this is an area I'm possibly watching to cover my shorts. So I was watching how we made these lower highs, and you guys remember all that absorption we saw in the middle of the balance range. Not a great, like, it could have worked. In this case, it would have worked for a big banger, but just wasn't comfortable going short there with that until I saw the momentum really step in, because we were in the middle of this balance range. Remember from the volume profile, this is the high and low of that marked. But then we made these lower highs, lower highs, lower highs with all that absorption. And then I said, remember I said, like, I see this breakdown coming, but I don't want to step in front of it because we kept seeing these pops. And then we saw this is a 2-minute chart, by the way, this heavy selling right here really break. Remember I said, I want to see the selling really under these 66s. And then we got that selling really under these 66s. This pop is where I took it short. And then this thing just collapsed. And there was the target. So no hindsight, real-time analysis, real-time entry. There you go. Hopefully that helped you guys. The great green box made it happen. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You guys know when I'm watching the green box on Bookmap, I'm not fucking around. Pardon my French. Look at that. We had that zone all the way over here. So I waited for that from 9:35 when I watched this area. Didn't take the bounce off of it, even though it worked for the mean reversion setup. Saw the absorption here, but then saw what was building here and said, okay, now let's watch this box for the break and retest. Break, retest, boom. Yeah, this is a break and retest short setup, Joe. This is not one that I take super often. Maybe we can cover this in the near future. I trade a lot more bottom and top reversals. This is a textbook order flow break and retest short. So, I mean, you know how to trade break and retest on a candle chart, right? So, look at this. Look at the 2-minute candle chart, right? We had the 2-minute candle close under the 66 level that we were watching that zone for. So we had the candle close under here, then we had the retest. So you could have traded this purely from a price action perspective on this break and retest. 2-minute candle close, we retest the level, it holds, maybe a stop over 68s, probably, right? So you could have taken this on a candle chart. Just in my opinion, it wouldn't have been good to take it till like the 63s, 62s, and you would have had a stop probably over like the 67s. So you would have had a lot less precision, right, on a candle chart for a break and retest. With this, because I had this very specific zone, like, look how precise that is. Is that not wild how precise that was? And then we had that break retest right here. And I got in at 63 something and just a stop over 66. So like the risk versus reward and precision of doing the break and retest with order flow is just like crazy better than just looking at a candle chart for it. Yeah. And combine all of that analysis with the volume profile for the balance range that we were observing. Now we hit that zone down there. Like I said, I was watching that 45 to 30s area for the target because that was an area I was possibly watching to get long. And look at the volume profile. This is why. So on that rally, see this area of low volume above these let me snip it so I can draw it. All right, so this is what I was targeting, this area here. See these pre-market highs and we rallied aggressively out of that on Monday morning, that area. I talked about this in the pre-market. See that low volume area here? That was the target because this was an area I was possibly watching that could get long. And you can see this massive wick out of there now too. Extend this over. No coincidence, right? I don't know what more I can do to show people that this stuff works, right? In real time. Now, you see how it works. You know what to do. Likely most of you, if you've been in here for some time with me, you know what to do. Now it's a matter of locking in, being disciplined, being patient. Like, do you think this felt good for me to sit in this here, holding for my target when this was consolidation was happening? No, it did not. Did not feel good, but just have to follow the plan. All right, guys, any questions? Hopefully, no, not totally. It doesn't invalidate it, Stoic. Um, but I'm not like I caught 20 points, so I'm chilling. You know what I mean? I'm not if I catch a first trade of the day, if I catch a nice 10 plus point move, if I catch like a if I catch a little scalp, I'll continue to look for little scalps. But if I catch a good size move to start the day in the first hour, like 10 to 20 point move on ES, like that's kind of a banger. On 10 to 20 points for a scalping day trader on ES is a good size catch. Um, so when I catch one of those, I typically am just doing a one and done. And also, I have that podcast to go on later. And this would just be really annoying if I took more trades and then gave some profit back, and then I would just be super annoying. Our first full month here. So first full month here in flipping futures. I think it's really beneficial to do this stuff live, see the analysis live. Like, it's one thing to just teach a course and show things in hindsight, but it's definitely a very different thing to do it live and to show the analysis live. And I think the learning curve, and not just doing this like for trade signals, right? Like a lot of these groups out here just do, buy here, sell here, but you may or may not make money in the short term with that. Probably not. Most people don't. Like 90. I don't actually. I've been trading for like 9 years, and I've never met anyone that just makes money from copying trade signals from like any group anywhere. But doing it live to help you guys see the analysis and build your own confidence so you can do this with me and on your own. That's the goal here. And look at this wicked bounce off that zone. So if on this breakdown, I would have definitely trailed my stop to 55s, right? So if I didn't sell at my target and held, I would have definitely at least trailed my stop to 55s, and I would have gotten taken down if I just didn't close at my target. And I would have been pretty annoyed to give back 10 points, especially since it hit my 45s target. All right, guys. I'll update the commentary as I see things, but like I said, for me, that's a one and done type of day. We do have this very nice low volume node area. I think Joe mentioned this. So I would watch this as kind of a key point up or down. This is what I'll leave you guys with. Joe mentioned it already, but on that breakdown of prior day lows, balance range, we had this nice low volume area here. So I'd watch this for either a retest for more downside, or if it recaptures, back up into the consolidation range. So I would watch that going forward.